Yeah. I know. We don't fucking get a bus. I hope it. There you go.
All right, let's go ahead and get started with our live chat for tonight, looking at our Unit 2. I've put you all on mute. We had a lot of background chatter, everybody's business going on, and so I'm protecting you as well as the rest of the class. So you are all on mute, but I do appreciate questions, interaction. So if you have something to add or you want to ask a question, please unmute yourself and chime in. You can also ask through the chat, but I really do appreciate having great participation. I went out, I spent a lot of time getting an extension cord, putting all my things out to enjoy my patio. It's finally cooled down a little bit, so it's not 100 degrees out here, and now I have mosquitoes. So you may see me slaying some mosquitoes during the live chat. So that's what I'm doing if it looks like I'm acting a little bit erratic. Hope you all had a great weekend. I have about 7 more papers to grade in one section of the class. So I hope to get that completed yet this evening so that everybody will have their assignments graded by morning on Wednesday. And we're going to do what we usually do in our live chat. I'm going to go over what the expectations are for this week, looking at assignments, how best to complete those assignments, and then we'll start talking about the course concepts that will help you apply the information and knowledge that you will learn. Does anybody have any comments or questions before we get started into the actual content for tonight? Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Let me move some things around here on my desktop. There we go. Okay, so tonight we're going to really dig into how we do research, and I've got the marketing umbrella up on the screen, which shows again the marketing concepts, our marketing mixed variables, which are people, our customers, the products that we have, our price, the place, promotion, and the research. So research holds up the whole marketing umbrella. We have to have a tremendous amount of research on every one of those marketing mix variables before we can make those strategic marketing decisions. Otherwise, we're just guessing, and guessing never works very well, particularly in marketing when we're typically looking at higher budgets and more dollars involved. We want to be pretty certain on those decisions that we're making. And so having that research and that understanding of our customers, our marketplace is going to be incredibly helpful in making sure that we do have the best strategies. So tonight, we are going to talk a lot about market research and how that helps us make those good decisions and how best to complete the market research. Just a quick word about writing. I've had quite a few students message me and ask about APA source citations, how we format for APA, all kinds of things that I include in the live chat and in the email. So at the end of every live chat, I send absolutely everybody in the class an email that has our PowerPoints in there, which has these resources. I send them everything, and you have the link, obviously, in the course room to the live chat. But I continually have people ask me questions of information that I have absolutely covered. So if you have questions about APA for any kind of formatting, how to cite those sources, I have these links in the PowerPoint. I will be sending them to you in an email. You can click on these links and get more information. It will even help you format those source citations. I recommend Grammarly for proofreading. Very good at helping you with your punctuation, spelling, sentence structure, all those kinds of things. Latoya, you have a question? Go ahead. Make sure you unmute yourself. Thank you.
So my question is with Grammarly, are we able to, is there like a discount for students? Is there some sort of partnership that you guys have? Because if not, it would be like a yearly fee upfront for Grammarly.
So even the free version of Grammarly is incredibly helpful. I've been using the free version for probably 6 or 7 years, but my understanding, Latoya, is that CTU does have an agreement and some type of a discount. Now, do I know how to help you access that? No, I do not. But my best recommendation is to go to the library or ask everybody has an advisor, an academic advisor. So I would either email or message your academic advisor or contact the CTU Writing Center or through the library. So all three of those. I will I'll tell you what, Latoya, I will try to figure out how to get that for you guys. And if I can figure that out, I will message everybody with the information on how to get access to Grammarly through CTU. But that was a great question. Thank you
Thank
so much.
you. Yeah, because my student success coach, I don't remember what their title is, they told me that they don't believe that we do offer it. So
See, I was told that CTU does offer it. So I will look into that. I'm going to put it in my notes. Give me a minute here and I'm going to put it in my notes on my phone.
thank
Um, otherwise I will forget. I've got a lot going on this semester. Okay. Let me see what I can figure out for you, and I will message everybody if I get some answers on that. Okay, so these live links, you'll get all of that information, and I'll send it in an email after we're done with the live chat. So, a couple things. So I've got 16 of you on, so 16 out of like 70 students. We're doing good. So at least 16 of you will have all the information you need. But so for our discussion board, Unit 2, one of the things that I have noticed, I've been teaching this class, I think, for 6 years now. I've taught multiple sections. I can't even tell you how many classes I have taught, but and when I look at it over the 30 some years I've been teaching, it's staggering to think about all the classes I've taught. But in the discussion boards, I have noticed over just the last maybe year, the discussion boards are hardly worth doing because everybody uses AI. They use AI to write the discussion board, and they're using AI to respond to their classmates. So when I look at the discussion board, pretty much all of the information is the same for every single student. So what I want you to do, this particular discussion board, you're going to have an article about understanding consumer demand and designing products around consumers' needs, identifying that unique selling point, and looking at that unique selling point in the digital marketing mix. So explaining how a strong USP can influence digital product strategy, but also then looking at that place strategy and how digital marketing opens up new channels. I'm going to sneeze. Hold on just a minute. Now that I said it, I probably won't. So, excuse me. So, what I would like you to do, those of you who are on this chat, those of you who actually pay attention and look at the archive will do this. I would like you to have the discussion in an AI platform, whether that's ChatGPT or Perplexity, whatever it is you're using, have this discussion with one of those AI platforms, and then just copy and paste that entire discussion into the discussion board. Does anybody have questions about that? Does that make sense to any of you? Thank you, Grayson. Does
Are we,
anybody have
I'm
any
sorry, are
questions
we
about
still
that?
using Refresh as the business? Will that
No, you can use any business. So let's go in. I'm going to stop my share. We're going to go into the course platform because I didn't copy the whole thing into our slide deck here. So let me go into our course room and we'll take a look at it. How about that? That will help, I think. Another good question, Latoya. I really appreciate you tonight. Okay, let's look at this. So we're looking at the 4 P's of marketing, blah, 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 digital shift. You're going to read this article, the digital marketing mix. You're going to look at this article. So it doesn't give you a lot of detail in here. You you can use Refresh or you can use another product of your choosing. So we redid this class last term, and they left out a few things that they needed to include in it, and it takes like 2 terms to get information updated. So Latoya, that was a really good question because they didn't include everything that they needed to. But we're looking at, you can use Refresh or you can use another product of your choosing. Does that make sense to everybody?
Are you wanting us to state what AI we decided to go with, or do you want us to leave it out?
Sorry, can you say that again, Cheyenne? I didn't get the first part.
Are you wanting us to state which AI product we decided to go with?
You can, it doesn't matter. So just what I'm looking at, so you'll have to pick a product and then look at how you would understand the consumer, look at the USP, have this whole discussion with one of the AI platforms. And it doesn't, you can state it or you don't have to, but then just include that whole discussion with the AI platform, include that all in your into the discussion board. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Anybody confused about that, or anybody have additional questions about
Yeah,
that?
Lisa, this is Joseph. Can you explain that again? So how the discussion with the AI going to be done? Is it? I'm a little bit confused. Can you say that again?
So typically what what I have what I have seen over the last 5 years, or not 5 years, but year and a half, is students totally just using AI to do all of their homework, the discussion board, their responses to students, everything. It's important that you understand how to use AI, and it's important that you cite your source when you use AI. So what I'm asking students to do in these discussion boards is we're doing sort of a beta test to see how it goes. I want you to actually have this discussion with an AI platform, be it ChatGPT or Perplexity or Claude, and then just whatever that discussion comes out as, copy and paste that into that discussion board. Does that make sense? Question.
Like I've already started my discussion board, so it means I have to redo it. So that's what I'm
Well, if you've
saying.
already started it, don't redo it.
Okay.
If you've already started it, carry on as you have. We're
Okay.
just doing some beta testing to see what this looks like as students do that. Because
Okay.
one, we're wanting students to learn how to ethically use AI. And
Uh-huh.
we're admitting as faculty that we know a lot of students are using AI.
Oh,
So we're
okay.
looking at how we incorporate it into our classrooms. If you've already started the discussion board, carry on as normal.
Okay, thank you. That's where my confusion lies.
Okay, yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for
Thank you.
asking that. I appreciate it.
All right.
Okay, any other questions on this discussion board?
So I guess just in terms of like how we're supposed to structure like the prompt, to have this discussion with with the AI tool, whether it's, Chat GPT or Perplexity is one you mentioned that I'm not familiar with. So I guess would we lead, something along the lines of like, hey, you're a thought partner, this is what we're discussing, and kind of go forward from there? Or are you looking from
Exactly.
like a copy paste type deal? Because, I definitely, I'm in a role where my organization is leaning heavy into all things AI. So, I think that, the prompt that we start with will really kind of drive the quality of the results.
Yeah, we're definitely looking at how we help you guys and guide you with prompts. And I'm going through and redoing every single marketing class at CTU that will include different components of AI and definitely how to write prompts, because that is a critically important element to it. So I appreciate you stating that, Jared. So yes, you would have the discussion. So you would go into whatever AI platform you're using and you would say, hey, ChatGPT or whatever, tell me a little bit about the pros and cons of a unique selling point, and how is that included in a product's marketing mix? And can you help me understand how a strong USP can influence a digital product strategy? Let's just say you're using ChatGPT. It'll come back with some information, then maybe ask it some questions based on the information it comes back with. So at the end, you'll have a big long dialogue as you go through each of these things, because then you'll say to it, okay, let's take a look at place in the digital marketing strategy. How does digital marketing open new channels for products that traditional marketing might not have? So you'll just kind of go through this whole discussion board scenario with whatever AI platform you choose. Once you get all this dialogue, you'll just include your back and forth with whatever AI platform, and you'll copy that and paste that right into your discussion board. Does that make more sense? Does that help clarify some of that?
Yeah, definitely. Just for the people that aren't as familiar, I think like including thought partner, and then challenge my ideas. If you include that in, the initial prompt or, kind of when you're feeding instructions will definitely help a lot, in terms of it being more of like a collaboration between you and, Chat GPT or whatever you're using. I don't know if anybody has any questions or wants any support, feel free to shoot me some a message on Messenger, and I'll do my best to kind of guide that because I know that might be a little foreign for a lot of different people.
Thank you, Jared. That's very helpful. And I can field those kind of questions as well. And a good question, Jason, would we have to cite the source? Definitely put down which AI platform you're using. So there are a lot of them out there. There's Claude, there's Grok, there's ChatGPT. There's a lot of them. So whichever one you're showing, just cite which AI resource you used. And Jared, you bring up some really good points. As we're rewriting these courses, we're kind of piloting this particular element. So we haven't transformed our discussion boards yet. So as we go forward and see how this all works out, and we look at some of the data that comes back from it, we will definitely include better directions in how to do that, if that's how we decide to go about discussion boards going forward. But definitely a really good good point that you make. All right, if anybody has any more questions, let's talk about them now, because I'm going to move on to our individual project. Any other questions?
Yes. Are we still responding to our peers regarding their posts?
Yes, definitely respond to 2 of your peers. That's still a component of it. I would prefer, and I think everybody gets really worked up in the discussion board posts about like word count and all those crazy things. Let's not worry so much about that. And I would love to just see your dialogue with your classmates. I'd rather see that than something that's coming out of AI. I would rather just see your honest feedback like, hey, Latoya, I thought you did a great job with this. I loved your point about the USP as it concerns whatever product you used, and you're right on with the place strategy for digital. I've been shopping online for years now. Something like that, just very down to earth. I'd like to see your own thoughts and not necessarily something that you got from ChatGPT to respond to your colleague. Because lately I'm looking at the discussion boards and it's like, everybody's response to their colleagues is exactly the same. It's too painful. So just don't worry about like word count and all those things. Just give a genuine response to your colleagues. You only have to do 2 of them. So yes, make sure you do that. Any other questions as we go before we go on to our individual project? Okay. All right. So our individual project is the most important component of it is our SMART goals. And I'm going to talk quite a bit about SMART goals and how to write those when we get into the course concepts. So let me go through this assignment and then we'll get into how to write the SMART goals, because that is an important component that you will carry with you no matter what area of business you go into. So if you're in management, you're in project management, you're in supply chain, you're an accountant, all of those business disciplines need to know how to write SMART goals. And I feel like people get very confused by the information that is provided around SMART goals. So I've even seen, I have a friend that he was a CEO for a big health system for a long time, and even he was confused about SMART goals, and he wanted to argue with me. He goes, well, that's not what the textbook says. So anyway, I'm going to give you a lot of examples of how I want to see your SMART goals, but let's go through this assignment first. So I've got a couple direct messages coming at me, and I acknowledge those, and I can't really respond while I'm in the middle of a live chat, but I will try to remember to do that before we close out. Okay, so individual assignment. You're going to look at carrying forth sort of the information from your discussion board posts. You're going to understand consumer demand. You're going to figure out a product. So based on that discussion board, what's that product you're launching? You're going to kind of give a brief description of it and what that unique selling point is. And then in terms of place, how you would distribute your product in a digital environment. Section 2 of this individual project is looking at SMART goals. I want you to write one very clear, very distinct SMART goal. That SMART goal does not need to be in a big paragraph of information. I want you to think about you're the marketing director in a corporation, and you need every single person in your organization to understand what the goal is and to work towards that goal. If they have to read through a big paragraph of information to figure out and find that goal, the chances of them actually working towards completing that goal are going to be very slim. So you are going to write one SMART goal. Then after you write that SMART goal, and you can put it in bold, you can make it like stand out on its own, then you are going to explain why this goal is important to your business and how you plan to achieve it. Now, what I get a lot of is people saying, so I give you an example. A really great SMART goal would be increase sales 10% by Q2. Great SMART goal. It meets all of the measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. But I have students that'll say, we're going to increase sales 10% by Q2 by doing blah, 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 blah. Do not do that. The how you're going to reach that SMART goal is totally separate from that SMART goal. You need that goal to be clear. You need that goal to be distinct. And then you can talk about how you're going to achieve it. The how you're going to achieve it is going to take a lot more detail, but do not detract from the importance of the goal by including all kinds of unnecessary information. So I'm going to go forward and give you a couple of examples, but the last element of this individual project then is to then follow up and talk about why it's essential to use the SMART criteria when you're setting a goal. So why is it important that you understand the measurable, the achievable, the relevant, and the time bound? And I'm going to talk about that with you as we finish up. Here's what the assignment is. So before we get into that, does anybody have any questions about your individual project? Okay, let's take a look. So SMART has a number of components. It's how we structure a goal. We want our goal to be specific because you need to make sure that everybody understands it, that it's not got lots of components to it. It needs to be very directional, very specific. It needs to answer a lot of questions: who, what, when, where, why. Ask yourself those questions as you set that goal, but be very specific about what you want to achieve. It needs to be measurable. If you cannot measure it, how will you know when you've achieved it? It needs to be achievable. It needs to be realistic, but it needs to have a situation where your team feels like it's not so lofty that there's no opportunity for them to actually achieve it. They need to feel like it's something they can strive for, but yes, they can absolutely do it. You have the resources, you have the wherewithal, you can make it happen. It needs to be relevant. It needs to be relevant to your organization, your current situation, and the things that your organization is working to achieve. And then it needs to be time bound. If it has no beginning and it has no ending, how will you know it's been achieved? So you need to be able to say, okay, by Q2, this work needs to be done. Otherwise, what happens? We tend to put it off and it will never get done. I look at I have a 17-year-old son. Do any of you have teenagers at home? He does very good. He's got very good grades, so I can't really speak a lot to his behaviors, but he'll always come home and he'll say, I have homework to do. And I'll go in his room and there he is gaming. And he's like, I'll just wake up early and do it. So he'll always put it off. Now, in his defense, he always does wake up early and he gets the homework done and he still has very good grades. But if he had no deadline for that homework, he would keep pushing it. And that's the same way with goals within an organization. If there is no time frame, if there's no deadline, you'll never get them achieved. So it needs to be time bound. So as we look at setting a SMART goal, again, here's a good one because it's increased sales 10% by Q2. It's very specific. You're going to increase sales. It's measurable because you're going to increase sales by 10%. It's achievable because it's only 10%. We're not asking our staff to increase sales by 200%. 10% is a very achievable goal, and it's very relevant to any organization. It shows growth within the organization, and it's time bound. It has to be done by Q2, so it meets all of the SMART criteria. This is the goal: increase sales 10% by Q2. I don't go on to explain how I'm going to do that. This is my goal. That's all you need to have in your goal. You don't need to then explain why it's specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, or relevant, and then time bound. You don't need to explain that within the goal. You're going to explain that later on in your paper, but make sure that you have a good goal. Keep it easy, simple, leave it as that goal. Does everybody understand? Any questions? People always get, and I know that the remaining classmates that you have, I've got 19 of you on here that are hopefully paying attention to this. Out of all the 60 students I have this term, I'm going to get a whole bunch of really convoluted goals. Hopefully the 19 of you that are on this live chat are those that do participate and look at the archive will give me a really good goal and not have all this fluff in it. So a lot of times people want to list out they'll put the specific, they'll put the measurable, they'll put the achievable. It's ridiculous the kinds of things I get. And I just think, oh my gosh, if people were in an actual corporation and they did that in a strategic plan, it would be impossible for your team to get anything done. So I really, if you get nothing out of this class, I really want you to understand how to write a really good goal that meets the SMART criteria. So I give you 3 examples here: increase sales 10% by Q2, obtain 20% market share by end of 2021, build awareness among 50% of the target market by the end of Q2 2022. These are 3 separate goals that all meet that SMART goal criteria of specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Any questions before we go forward? Okay, We're going to spend the rest of our class time looking at marketing research, because remember, it is the handle that holds up all of our marketing. And without good research, it is impossible for us to set good goals. It is impossible for us to create strategies that are going to make a difference for an organization. And it's impossible to set those strategies that will help to achieve those goals. So we have to have good research. It is absolutely paramount to have good research in any kind of marketing that you're doing. And it's really interesting because I teach a very specific social media healthcare class for an MBA cohort for a big healthcare system in Florida. And most of them are healthcare practitioners. So when they're working on marketing stuff, it's completely foreign to them. And they're doing a simulation in social media. And the first round of the simulation, they get all kinds of data back after they make the decisions in the simulation. And most of them they aren't taking time to do the research. So they go on and they do round 2, and so many of them have a really bad grade in round 2. And they are all emailing me, what have we done wrong? What have we done wrong? And it's, have you looked at the research? You have to look at the research, because the research will guide you to the right decisions to make going forward. Do not ignore the research. So in marketing, everything is based on data and research. And it's really important to not just look at the data in a vacuum, but look at both, and we're going to talk about it, both qualitative and quantitative data, because it's going to tell you a story, and that story will help you formulate your strategies for marketing. So when you're looking at this slide here, you have the environment, the marketing environment in the middle. That outer wheel, the blue wheel, the lighter blue wheel, is your micro, and what we call the micro environment of marketing. And within that micro environment of marketing, there are a lot of components that we need to research. And those components are things that are very close to the organization. And we can make a lot of decisions as an organization on things that we can do to make changes that will help impact those things in that micro environment. And it will impact the organization as well. Things like, just the actual environment that we have that we're operating in, our employees, our policies, our corporate culture, all of those things are really important. And all of those things take a significant amount of research. And a lot of companies spend a lot of time working with their employees to research and understand those things. We need to look at the types of markets we serve and work within. We need to look at our competition. Our competition is very close to us as an organization. You're going to take a look at competition and unique selling point in both of your assignments this week. That is something that is very important. I think I've told all of you I own a coffee bar, and I've had it for 11 years. I have it in a very tiny little community. My children both work there. A couple of weeks ago, my daughter and I can't remember where we were going now, but she was riding with me. We were going somewhere, and she said, why are you going? Why? She wanted to question my directions and why I was taking the route that I was taking. And she said, it's going to take you longer. And I said, I don't care, because we need to drive past the coffee bar and see what the parking lot looks like. And on the way, we'll pass all the other coffee bars that are competition for me. And I want to see what their parking lots look like. It's part of my routine every morning is to check what's going on in my community, what's happening in my coffee bar, what's happening for the competitors. And I want to see how things are moving along and what it looks like in our community. So really understanding your competitors. And I look online. I every morning wake up really early and I look at the social media. I read things, I read customer comments, and I understand what's going on with my coffee bar and what's happening with the competitors in my market. You've got to look at your marketing channels. You're looking at that too in your discussion board and in your individual project. How are consumers getting the products? Looking at how you're delivering those out. Are you doing it digitally? Are you doing it in bricks and mortar? Do you have any kind of intermediaries, wholesalers, retailers? Are you doing anything with brokers? So you've got to look at all of that. And that's always important to have research on. And then you've got to look at your organizational objectives. What's going on in your organization? What are those goals that you have and how are you going to achieve them? So those are all things that require a significant amount of research. The outer wheels, these purple wheels on the very outside of this, are your macro environment. All of those things, very important, and they will ultimately affect your organization. You can't necessarily do anything to impact those, but what you can do is make decisions that will help you as you navigate those things. And I'll give you some examples as we go through them. Economic factors. We're all facing that. We've had a lot of inflation we've seen prices of everything on the rise. I've seen it in my coffee bar. I've had to increase prices. I've had to look at different suppliers in many instances so that I cannot have really hugely inflated prices, but I'm constantly looking at the price of the coffee beans that I buy. I'm hedging my bet on how I buy those coffee beans. I'm also looking at where I can get the best rates on the inventory that we need to carry in order to not have to make price increases to my customers again. But a lot of things happen economically that impact our business, and it's in my best interest to try and keep prices down so that as consumers feel the impact of the economy, they're still continuing, hopefully, to get that cup of coffee and not see it as something that they want to cut out of their overall budget. So it's in my best interest to keep those prices in check for them. The other thing we have are political forces. Those always affect us. Just the other day, I mean, I get, I feel so loved because I get so much mail from the Tennessee tax department and the IRS. I'm like, I'm one little tiny coffee bar, but I'm constantly getting some kind of mail from them. I pay about 7 different kinds of taxes for my coffee bar. And just yesterday, I was out doing something and one of my customers, really good customer, texted me and said, "Hey, the health inspector's here." Health inspector comes to my business way more than he should because he likes to get coffee and he lives close by. But interestingly enough, when I was in build out, I recently moved my coffee shop this past summer and we were building it out, and the health inspector got the building plans for the coffee bar, approved them. I had the email from him that said they looked great, go ahead. I had the stamp of approval. I had all of the things. And in our kitchen, which we have a big back kitchen area, we have a stackable washer and dryer because we go through a tremendous amount of bar towels. He came to do the final inspection as we were opening, and he said, "You can't have this stackable washer and dryer back here." I was like, "Excuse me, you approved the plans." So then they halted everything because they realized that they had indeed approved the plans. And so he's like, "Well, we're going to take 10 points off." Well, 10 points out of 100 is huge. And that's a big thing for any kind of business, small business and restaurant. I said, "You can't take off 10 points every time because of this washer and dryer when you approved it." So now he takes off 1 point, and it's a political thing. And I'm sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place because if I throw a fit about it, he can come back at me for something else. I mean, I don't want to make enemies of this person. And you'll find that a lot with people that have political jobs. So how do you navigate that water? But political factors, things like, laws, regulations, I'm trying to get my liquor license now, all of that, huge political factors if you own a business, and you have to not only know your local politicians, but you have to be involved, or you're going to find that things aren't really favorable for a small business or any business in that respect. So political factors, really important. Cultural factors, what's going on. I've seen a lot of changes in my community. The community that we had when I opened my coffee bar, very different now because we have had so many people move into our area. We have people that have come from Texas, California, Washington State, Oregon. We've had people that have come from New York and from Washington, D.C. area. We have so many people. We have one of the fastest growing communities in the country, and so much construction. We have new roadways. We have 5 or 6 new housing developments just within a 2-mile radius of my coffee bar. So a lot of cultural factors, and it has definitely affected the product mix of what I have to carry in my coffee bar. So it's always really important for me to gauge the feelings of my customers and understand what kind of products and services they want. Natural forces. We all saw natural forces come into play during the COVID days. And I had my coffee bar at that time, and I was watching TV. I mean, I watched the news all the time, local and national, because I've got to understand economics, I've got to understand the politics, and I've got to understand culture. And so I was watching and I was like, they're going to shut us down. They are going to shut us down. And as I'm watching it happen in real time, I'm putting up my order online website. I'm adjusting everything within my coffee bar because I knew that that next morning I had to shut that coffee bar down, but I knew I had employees that depended on me. I knew I still had to pay my rent, but I would have no revenue coming in. So I created order online, and we delivered coffee to our customers in the parking lot. We shortened our hours. I had to understand how to work within all of those parameters and what that was going to look like. So natural forces come into play. And the other natural force that we had in my community was we had a tornado rip through our town. And so probably 2 weeks after we had shut down for COVID, our whole street my coffee bar was the only thing that didn't really get hit or damaged in this huge tornado that went through. We still had electricity. We didn't have any damage to our roof, our windows. I had everybody's roofs and insulation on the front of my windows. And I stayed open and provided free coffee for the community for the next several days because we had power companies from 7 states come in to help restore power. And all my neighbors, my entire community that had supported me, had damage or power outages, and they really needed coffee. So we just stayed in there and brewed coffee and provided it to our community. So 2 natural forces right there within, just a short time of each other. So you've got to constantly be researching things like that are going on. And I've got to understand natural forces and how they affect coffee, because coffee is a commodity. And I really have to understand that. So lots of research there. Technology, I have seen so much happen with technology, just my websites, my point of sale system, how I set up my website and the things I need to add to my website, and how I can keep my coffee bar relevant on Google when people are searching for coffee near them. So all kinds of different technology has come into play. I've been through 3 or 4 versions of a mobile app as I've launched, employee customer rewards, all of those things. So technology is changing rapidly, and companies have to understand how they work with that. And that's probably one of the biggest areas to research right now. And then, as I already mentioned, along with cultural factors, is those demographic factors and how those are changing and what you may need to do to keep up with those demographic factors. So all of these things, and so a lot of people are like, too much. Marketing is too much for me. But I'm like a type A and I love it. And I loved all the different things and I love to have variety and I love the challenge of figuring it all out. So there's always something for me to do and it's never a dull day and I am never bored. I will tell you that. So marketing takes a lot of research and a lot, these little balls are exactly what you'll be doing. There are always a lot of balls in the air with marketing. You've got a lot to figure out. There's one of those pesky mosquitoes. So quickly, types of research. You have primary research and secondary research. Primary research is research you would do for the very first time, typically done for your organization. It can be costly because you're the one doing that research project, and it can be a little bit time consuming, although we have a lot of technology now that helps us with that research, so it can be done fairly quickly. Secondary research is research that has already been conducted. So things like finding out demographic information through the US Census. That's secondary data. It's already been collected. It's available to me. I can get that data and I can use it for my situation. But a couple things you want to think about with secondary data. You want to think about what the purpose of the data was and how recent that data was collected. If we look at the US Census as an example, it was collected back in 2000. It's still okay to use, but it's getting a little stale. We've had so many changes in our community that census data is a little bit outdated, even 5 years past when it was originally collected. So those are some things you need to think about. Secondary data, I mean, there are a lot of organizations that are out there collecting data and creating reports. Some of it can be costly. I did a feasibility project for a big wellness spa, and that research was secondary research, was part of what I needed to collect for that feasibility study. It was kind of pricey. I think I spent $2,000 or $3,000 on the data, but it was a lot of information and incredibly helpful in them understanding how to structure their organization. The other two types of data are qualitative and quantitative. I alluded to that at the beginning of our live chat. So qualitative data is going to be information that is emotional. It's going to be more conversational. It's going to be things like focus groups or one-on-one interviews where you're getting emotional responses and feelings from your customers or your target audience. Quantitative data then is data that can have some statistical significance to it. It's data like a survey where you're sending out a survey and you may send out that survey to 300 or 400 people and you're going to get all of this information back. You can tabulate that data and you can ascribe some statistical significance to it. Typically, when I do a research study, I'm going to do qualitative first because it can give me a lot of background information, and then I will follow it up with that quantitative that helps me validate what I got through that qualitative research. Very first thing that you do in any kind of market research is you've got to identify the problem. If you do research and you haven't identified the problem, you may get the wrong answer and you may go down a road you do not want to go down. So spend a lot of time making sure you've totally identified the problem. Really great example of a company that didn't correctly identify the problem is Cracker Barrel. That's a great example. And you can look back, there's a lot of articles on it right now. They went ahead and changed their logo. They were in the process of reformatting all their stores and they had no issue. Their sales were good. They had loyal customers. They had a real niche in the market and they decided that they were going to do some things and they spent a lot of money doing wrong things. So they based all of this work on nothing. There was no reason to do the work, so no problem identified. But a couple things that you can do to look at it, let's just say you were trying to figure out who your target market was. You could do some social listening through social media. You could look at websites and blogs, and you could just do some basic Google searches and understanding the target market. Steps to research design. There are 3 traditional types that help us guide our market research. Exploratory, which is what we usually do when we do that qualitative data, gives us that background information, helps assist in the problem recognition. We can then do some descriptive research, and that's going to help us answer those questions: who, what, where, when, and how. And then we can do causal research, which gives us sort of a, if we do this, then what happens? An example of causal research would be in my coffee bar, let's say, sales of my pastries were kind of stagnant, and I may want to investigate what kind of new pastries I might want to serve. And so I may give some samples to my customers and ask them what they think of that, or see which samples get the best response. That would be a causal research example. I mentioned already that we have a lot of great technology and research. We have customer relationship management software. I have it through my point of sale, which tells me which products sell the best, what day parts are working the best. All of those things are really helpful. It can go through and mine that data. We can get secondary data resources. There's all kinds of technology that's out there gathering research all the time. I already mentioned the US Census data. We can do focus groups, and those used to be really costly, but we can do them in chat rooms like Zoom. Gives us a real cost savings and allows better participation in focus groups. Same with one-on-one interviews. And then the best thing ever is the internet surveys that allow us to create and test surveys. We can even buy panels that help us get better responses to our surveys in a quicker format and for less cost than it ever was to do a survey. So all of those things are really helpful in how we conduct market research, because we constantly have to be doing research in order to make those good decisions. It's a lot of information, and I've kind of flown through it. Does anybody have any questions before we close up tonight? I am going to send the PowerPoint and those live links to you in an email. Any questions before we end tonight? Yeah, Chantel, yes, you can use any company to write your SMART goals. So a lot of times I have students that may either have their own company, or B, they're looking to start a company. And so I recommend that they use that because this will help them as they work towards creating their company or building their company. If you don't have anything, go ahead and you could use the refresh product. You can make something up. You can use this as an opportunity to start a company. So yes, you can use a company that you want to for that. You don't need a SMART goal for your references. You're going to create a SMART goal. That doesn't need any reference. When you talk about the SMART components and why it's important to be smart when setting goals, that will need some outside references, and those will be easy to find. But just write your SMART goal. Keep that SMART goal specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. That's going to be a simple, like, one sentence. You don't need any references for that. Any other questions?
So I guess I haven't really looked too much into this week's individual project. You know, the template you provided last week. I'm sure there's probably something similar provided for this week.
Yes.
I've had, I don't know, kind of differing opinions from professors in the past in terms of like our ability to kind of edit some of those, like, you know, headers and section headings and things like that. Are you okay with that? Or do you want us just to leave the, you know, the template 100%, you know, as it's provided to us and kind of work from that?
You can have a little bit of leeway, but be very careful with that. As I'm going through grading these assignments, I'm going to have 60, almost 70 papers to grade in like a day. So we as professors use those templates to find the important facts that we need to from our students. So when you toy with them too much, it does create a problem for us when we're trying to grade it and we're looking for those very specific components that are part of your grading rubric.
All
Does that
right,
make
Lisa,
sense?
Joseph's here. I have a question for you.
Yes.
Would you love for us to put handle to your name while submitting the papers, or you just want us to call you just Willsey-Goolsby? Well, which one you prefer?
You can call me Professor Lisa. I don't even like my last name and I'm looking to get it changed.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Just keep it simple.
All right.
So like on the title page of our papers, Professor Lisa is what you prefer.
You
You know,
can write anything there. I don't, yeah, that doesn't matter to me, but I thank you for asking.
awesome. Thank you.
Yep. What I want to know, I'll tell you what's really important to me because I work out in the real world and I know what's going to be important. I know a lot of you are in professional jobs as well, but when I'm looking at marketing and the things you need to know, that's what's important to me. So when I'm looking through your papers, I want to make sure every single student that's going through my class can write a good SMART goal. I'm going to be all over that for this assignment. I want to know that you can find a unique selling point. I want to know that you can tell the difference between a digital distribution strategy and a traditional distribution strategy. Those are going to be the key things that I'm looking for this week from you guys. I'm going to be all over that SMART goal. Don't mess those up. If you need to message me and say, is this a good SMART goal? Do that. But I want you guys to write a really good SMART goal and not screw that part up. All right, I will email this this PowerPoint to you. And then again, if you have any questions, Messenger is the best way to get me. I've had a few students who have emailed me. I look at my email, but not as often as Messenger. So do the Messenger if you need to get a hold of me or want me, you know, want to run anything past me or whatever. That's the best way to get in touch with me. So thanks so much, guys. Have a good rest of your evening. I'll send this email out right now. And I have a few assignments left to grade, and I'm hoping to get those done before I go to bed tonight. So
Good night. Bye.
I'm all over it. Have a good evening. Thanks.